It is for me a great honor to be here today, and I want to start by telling you a very personal story. And about 4 years ago, I went to my very first web conference, and that was the Future.js that happened to be in this very same venue. And to be very honest with you, back then I probably understood about 30% of the coding part. So time goes by, and today I have the great honor to be standing here, being part of one of your speakers today, and it's kind of emotional for me today, and I wanted to share that with you. And because of that, I would like to give a very special thanks to the Full Stack Fest organizers for having me. So I would appreciate if we give it up for them. Loud. So before we get on, I would like to tell you something about me. You heard I come from Costa Rica, and okay, I forgot the most important part, sorry. My name is Mauricio Palma, and I was born in Costa Rica. If you have been in Costa Rica before, you probably know we're known about ecotourism, pristine nature, and exotic beaches. And that is everything very accurate. But there is one thing I bet you don't know about us, and that's it. We have like huge sinkholes in the middle of the street, and driving is no fun at all, and especially if you're used to German traffic. So I thought that would be a fun fact to start with, but getting for real is I've been developing web apps and sites for the web since the last 4 years. I'm a product engineer in Sinnesschwader, and I always have tried to work very closely with user interfaces and user interaction, working very closely with developers and designers alike. Currently, we're working on an open source project called Alva, and Alva, what pretty much does is a designer tool that lets you draw interactive products based on the same components we developers are doing, which is pretty exciting. And I also have the chance to work a lot with design systems for our customers in a design ops team, and it is really, really nice to work on design systems or developing tools for designers. So that's pretty much the stuff I'm doing today. And besides my life as a developer, I have a family business too with my partner and wife, and that is Wood Like Ocean. And at Wood Like Ocean, we craft swimwear out of ocean-recovered fishing nets. And for me, it is very exciting because we get to experiment with using waste as the main ingredient of our products. And I personally think that's pretty much the future of consumer goods. So that's pretty much about me. And now that I gave you a little bit background, I feel that I'm a very fortunate person. Like, I'm very grateful that I get to do the things that I love, even if it takes a lot of work and sacrifice. But being a web developer is something that I love. It is this passion for aesthetics, for the craft of writing HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, loving the challenges, loving the grind, and especially loving the moment when we bring a project to life. And that's all amazing. But there is one thing I have come to realize in later years, that my work should have a higher purpose than my own self-gratification. And please don't get confused by the name of my talk. It is not a struggle between accessibility and web APIs. On the contrary, it is the collaboration of both of them that will guide us on this journey on how to develop more empathetic web interfaces. So for now, I want you to please listen carefully to the following scenarios and think if it applies to you or if you have experienced it before. And the number one is, you have heard of accessibility before. You know it is important, but you never had the chance to implement it on your project. Number two would be, you have been working on a project for months, and just before go live, you get the requirement that the project needs to fulfill certain accessibility standards. That hurts sometimes. And number three, which is my favorite, is you fully grasp and understand the importance of accessibility and inclusive design, just to hear from decision makers that it is not necessary because it is not relevant to their target market. Or you even hear something like, you should invest your time and energy in something more meaningful. And that's the moment my brain just explodes. So if you're familiar with any of these, I want you to please to raise your hand. I want to have a clear picture about the knowledge about this. Raise them high, don't be shy, we're not being judgmental. So pretty much half-half. So thank you. So there's a lot, I see a lot of hands not being raised. So we need a lot of awareness about why accessibility in the web, it is important. And it is great to see so many hands raising up because you have experienced it in one way or another. So we have a common ground to continue. Myself, I have experienced them, all of them, in one way or another. And sometimes it feels very challenging to advocate for accessibility, and especially implemented in our projects. We, as web professionals, we have a collective responsibility for the web apps that we build. We need to be mindful in all aspects of our work. We need to meditate on that and do something about it. Think about it for a second. We have been working on hundreds of websites or apps. We have gone through a ton of user flows. And my point here is we have a toolbox full with buzzwords. And the thing is, no matter how bad an interface has been designed, we are always going to find a way or find how to work it out. But that is us working in a bubble, trapped in our own biases. And this is not how the rest of the world interact with our applications, not at all. And unfortunately, I had to learn it the hard way. So there were two events in my life that made me really reflect on that matter and about the importance of accessibility. And the first one and most painful one was a health issue we had in the family. My wife's uncle was found on the floor unconscious and dehydrated, and he probably laid on the floor for a couple of days. Today, we're very happy that he's back home, but he's an elderly person, so he relied on the web before his accident for pretty much everything. He would order his groceries online, he would order pastries for coffee dates with the family, bills and finances would be done on the web. And after his hospital release, he gave me a call. Maybe important to mention for you to understand, after his release, he was diagnosed with a poor vision and a slight memory loss. So when he was back, he was giving me a call, and he's like, Mauricio, I think my computer is broken. Like, I'm trying to order some groceries, but it's not working. So I went over there, and I took a look at his computer. Everything was working fine, and I asked him, can you please show me the problem? And that was pretty much the moment that made me realize to open my eyes. And we were in his favorite supermarket online store, and he couldn't recognize the add to cart buttons. He couldn't differentiate between a text, a copy text, or an input field. So he couldn't navigate through the site at all. And this was very sad. and it made me realize that I, as a web developer, was not being responsible enough with the interfaces I've been writing until that moment. They're not accessible enough, and they were not inclusive enough. Excuse me. But we can actually make better use of the current accessibility tools. And we can help people like my wife's uncle get things done online. And we can even go further and take advantage of the web APIs to make the web a more open place for everyone. So before breaking out your code editor, we need to step back for a second. And we need to give ourselves time and space to consider the following things. And as trivial as it might sound, but we need to challenge our mindset every single time we start a new project. It is not about us trying new technologies or using new coding paradigms, which are important, don't get me wrong, but the true baseline is to include as many people as we can in our web applications in a meaningful way. And we need to be aware that we tend to use our own experiences of the world to design and develop applications. But to be inclusive, we need to be open or open ourselves to new experiences and perspectives and distance ourselves from our bias. And let us apply empathy. Empathy as a way to gain insights and to use these insights to improve our web applications. So probably nowadays we have been hearing a lot about empathy, and empathy is not only a great skill, it can be an amazing tool. And it is something that it can be trained as well. And for those of you who don't know, empathy is pretty much about understanding, being sensitive, and to someone else's feelings, experiences, and thoughts. And we try to see their world, how they perceive it. And not only users benefit from being empathetic, our coworkers or stakeholders will benefit too. It is a great skill when we try to put ourselves in someone else's position. We're going to have a better way to work as developers. And let us be curious and research with genuine interest the full range of diversity, of human diversity, and to include in our web applications. This will help us bond with people we never thought about it, and it is really fun when you try it. And if that's not enough for you, here's a fun fact too. When our brain encounters new experiences, it releases dopamine, which is our feel-good hormone. So there are many benefits about it. Let's nurture the mentioned skills and use them in a collaborative way with our teammates and take it to the next level to educate others about the importance of being inclusive and accessible. So we have covered what I consider the basic skills that every developer should work nowadays to work on accessible applications. But now we can really dive into the tech implications of it, not only the meta level, which is important, the soft skills for it, but what I have observed among us developers, and please don't get me wrong, but I have observed that for a lot of developers, accessibility, it is just a checklist. It is just a list of guidelines given by the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines that we need to implement. And a lot of times, it feels just like the same attitude we have towards front-end development for older browsers. Something that we just need to do at the end, only because it is enforced and it is absolutely necessary. Do you know that feeling when you have been working in a project and the time has come to check it in an older Internet Explorer, it's kind of uncertain. And you're like, what's going to happen? And I think my theory is that our approach or our thoughts are that way because we as humans, we try to avoid problems that we don't understand. That's our nature. And probably one of the reasons web accessibility and inclusive design is being perceived in that way. But what if we start considering accessibility and inclusiveness as technical concerns of our application, like a core layer in our architecture? For example, there's an estimated 119 million people in Europe with hearing loss as on 2015. In Spain alone, it is about 1,064,000 people with hearing loss or hearing problems. That's about 2.8% of the Spanish population. And every single day, we deny deaf and hard of hearing people access to our socials and professional lives. And during my research, I found this app called Ava, and their team challenged this reality with their work. And I would like to show you something very quickly.
I am deaf.
I am hard of hearing, and I'm pretty good at reading lips. When there is too many people, though, this can get really tough. Sometimes it's hard to understand.
People talk so fast. It can be pretty overwhelming. When there's too much going on, Ava is awesome to see what people say. With one tap, I invite people, and they join me with their phones.
I need Ava to attend meetings at work.
Follow what the teacher says in class.
I won't understand people when they forgot to look at me. Ava will translate just about anything for me.
Well, almost everything.
So this was so inspiring for me, and what they did really great. I'm not related to them, or I'm not advertising them. It was for me very inspiring too to found this app, and what they did right is that by recognizing exclusion and being empathetic towards people with hearing loss or hard of hearing people, the Ava team was able to come up with a meaningful solution that can help people in everyday's life. And we can actually do these kind of things on the web today. Like the browser offers a whole set of tools written in JavaScript to provide additional functionalities, and with them you can do all kind of tasks. In the last couple of years, I've been experimenting a lot with device-related APIs like audio, device orientation, ambient light, among others. And I strongly believe there's a lot of potential for new accessibility use cases on the web. For example, if we think about my wife's uncle case, and we could use the ambient light to improve or to provide the most effective contrast for readability. So we could be measuring the room light, and we can provide a color contrast of 4.5 to 1 for larger text, or 7 to 1 for smaller text. And that would make a AAA accessibility compliance. And the punchline is that by knowing the interrelated conditions in which the user interacts with our apps, we're able to provide more meaningful UIs. And we solve a problem for one person, but we extend it to many others. And I mentioned there were 2 events. The second one was not painful at all. Well, physically it was painful. I got injured. I had a sport injury, and I dislocated my arm. So I was not able to interact with my environment, and that was really frustrating. And even though I was feeling fit, the doctor gave me a 2-week sick notice, and I wanted to stay productive. And that is how I discovered the Apple from the keyboard dictation feature, which is pretty amazing. And I suddenly recognized the enormous potential of the web speech API. So by allowing us to control the application through voice, we can open our applications to a lot of other people. We can be inclusive to people with vision impairments or with literacy problems or might have a permanent disability. And the Web Speech API has been around since 2014 and has been baked natively in the web. And it enables us to include speech recognition and synthesis in our applications. And we will be covering in the last 10 minutes how to include speech as a core layer or as a core feature of an application. And accessibility and inclusion will become main concerns of our applications, so we handle them at a technical level. So I wrote this, for not just the video, but I wrote this JavaScript application. What it does, it collects all of my Spotify playlists, and it allows me to play them through the Spotify Connect web API. So it means like I can play music from the app to any of my devices with the Spotify app, which is really amazing. Like if you're into that, I would recommend to try that out. And for now, you can see, basically it's a really normal app. You're navigating through click events like you normally would do it. So the basic functionality is in place. But we want to include speech recognition, the service, into our app. So the web speech recognitions receive audio through the device microphone, and it processes the speech and check it against the list of grammars. And this is how much it works. There's no more to that. One important thing to notice is that in Chrome, using the speech recognition engine involves the server-based recognition. So meaning audio will be sent to the service for it to be recognized or processed, and only works online. Usually, it should be used, or in theory, the web should use the speech recognition service from your device. But for now, that's not the case. So we can do a little bit of initial configuration. It's very not hard at all. We have, we instantiate the speech recognition controller. We have a max alternative properties, which default is 1. I don't need it at all. But the interesting thing about it is that it let us define the amount of possible words that or suggestions that we will receive back as a transcript. We have something like interim results. It let us know if we can receive results that are not final yet. And the lang property, it defines the speech recognition language. So if not specified, it defaults to the HTML lang tag or to the user agent's language setting. And when we talk about speech recognition, grammars is something that it is very, very important. And SpeechGrammarList represents the list of grammar objects containing words or patterns for the service to understand. For this application, I'm using RxJS observables. We will not cover it in this talk, but it's basically a data stream containing the grammars. And the difference is that instead of giving them all at once, we give them over time. So we subscribe to them and pass it to the add to string method, which takes the grammar and the weight, the grammars and the weight. and it refers to, the way it refers to the value from 0.0 to 1, and tell us how important are these words for the service. And at the end, it will be passed, to the speech recognition itself. And this is the moment you might be thinking, why I get so excited about grammars, or why are they so important? And to understand that, we need to talk about NLP, or natural language processing, which is the field that focuses on the interactions between human voice and computers. And the idea is for a computer to analyze, understand, and derive meaning from the human language. And that's what the Web Speech API is all about. But there's an underlying problem. Human language is ambiguous. And this is what makes natural language processing at the end so hard to get right. And it is even more difficult if you start considering accents. So you have to believe me, for example, the German Alexa, like, we don't get along at all. Like, she just don't understand what I'm trying to say, which is really frustrating. And English is better, but Spanish is ideal. So they don't understand my intentions, and that's why if we want to be really accessible and inclusive, the application needs to understand what we mean. And there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in this field, especially if you think combined languages, like, that's not part of the presentation, but you can just ignore it. Spanish and English. And so I talked to Alexa, not so good, but I have some good things. I look at their intents for inspiration, and intents basically was a good way for me for this showcase application to tackle the problem. So if you think about it, we were at the homepage of the app, and we want to navigate to the playlist. And so the user could say something like, go to my playlist, or show my playlist. And I even have the chance to consider such things like OK list or call list, which it makes no sense to all of us, but these are kind of things that the service will give us back. So we're covering our backs, and we want for the service to understand what we mean. And this would be a very simple equivalent in JavaScript of what we consider the intentions the user could say. It has a type property, it has samples, which is an array with all the possible utterances, and an action method related to this command or intent. So I'll show you a little demo. So I have to, you're probably not going to see my face because I have to talk to the microphone, which is kind of weird, but we can try that out. So this is the application. Oops, no worries. So I'm locked. So like I said, we consider something like, okay, I can tell, go to playlist. And it would go to my playlist, or I could say something like, go back. And we can even, well, you should go back, go home. Now it goes home. So this is kind of forced, but if the recognition service would understand something like call list, then it still knows what I'm trying to say. So this is why intents are so helpful for us. And before we get into the exciting stuff, we want to continue with a few methods you will need in the application to actually get more things done. And for us would be the start method, which, like the name says it starts the recognition service, and it listens to the incoming audio to recognize the grammars associated with the current speech recognition. And this method triggers the speech recognition itself by pressing the mic button. There are also some important methods like start and abort, but we're running out of time, so I will keep it simple for now. But you should take a look at those methods too. There's a few events too. We will cover just the basic ones. And first of all, I think it is really important would be the onerror. It's a read-only property, but it could be for us developers very useful because we then know why did a service didn't work, maybe because of a network connection, and we can then react to that. Thanks so much about that, was so annoying. Yeah, it's good. So we have the onStart event, which is fired when the service has begun listening to incoming audio. And we just use it in the app as a flag. So I know when the service is recognizing, then I can do some stuff. That's what I'm using the onStart event. And this is what we have been waiting for, is when we finally get a result, when the service has recognized our intents and give us a result back. And the events contain the speech recognition result that, on the other hand, contains or allows to access the speech recognition alternative. And it contains a transcript, which is the string that it has been understood, or strings, and a confidence score. And the confidence score is a value between 0 to 1. And it tells us how confident the service think the recognition was. And so we filter these events, and I have an abstract command factory that actually matches the results with the executing actions. And so I'm going to go back to the demo, and we'll probably kind of try to play some songs, and then we will see if the service gets my English so right or not. So we pick something easy first, they should work, and then we pick more difficult, and probably will say, like, I don't know what you're trying to say, but let's give it a try. So I like to show this playlist because this was pretty much what I was listening while I was preparing this presentation. So let's use that one. We have, I would say something like, go to the better path. Not better, that's what I meant. Not better again. Go to the better path. So it goes to my playlist, and then here are all the songs that I had. Where's my mouse? Yeah. Here are all the songs I had for this playlist, and we can start with something not so difficult like People. And I say, play People. And it plays the music. So I'll check my Spotify, and I see it's playing the song. Check it here.
Beautiful and bright.
I can say something like, stop.
People of the night. Beautiful.
And now let's try something hard, like smooth transition of power. I think that would be hard enough. Play a small transition of power. Well, it gets it right. And it didn't play. Play a small transition of power. A smooth. That was my error, not the machine error. Play a smooth transition of power. And it gets it right. So we go back. So we're running out of time, and we probably want to do some Q&A. So I'll try to keep it we don't have so much anymore. We have covered a lot about the web speech recognition API. We have glanced into some parts of the application, something basic, but hopefully you will gain some understanding about the possibilities of combining accessibility with some of the latest APIs. But before we wrap it up, I want to share with you two last things. And the first one is browser support. And for the speech recognition service, it is only available in Chrome right now. And in Firefox, actual support is being waiting for permission to be sorted out, whatever that means. So it doesn't work in Firefox neither. And the speech recognition API, it is still unfortunately an experimental API, but nevertheless, there's a lot of third-party JavaScript libraries that can get the job done. I'm not associated to them, but for example, you could use something like G-Cloud, speech-to-text, or speech recognition, or you can use Watson's natural language, just to mention a few. So this is something that you can actually do today. But the reason I wanted to focus on the web speech recognition is our browsers offer so many functionalities. And before we start putting in so many libraries in our projects, I always recommend to see what can we leverage from the browser. And this project, is that readable? Yeah, a little bit. It's available on GitHub, so you're very welcome to clone it, to play with it, break it, to give me some feedback. Just take a look at the README. You're very welcome to play with it. And that would be it. Thanks.
We do have an excellent question. I wonder if you could share your thoughts about this. And the question was, when comparing speech recognition versus other forms of accessibility technologies, is this something that either immediately or in the future you see as replacing these other types of accessibility technologies, or is it something that would work in conjunction with, say, other types of accessibility APIs and so on?
I'm so sorry, because of the acoustic, Reg, I can hear you very...
No.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. So when looking at speech recognition, and then there are other forms of accessibility APIs and technologies, do you see speech recognition as replacing these others? Or is this something you do in conjunction with?
Something in conjunction. There is no one tool that solves everything. And even though our intention is to include as many people as possible, it all depends on what is the audience, what is the problem that you're solving with your application. This is just an example of, if you take a look at MDM today, there's a huge amount of web APIs. So basically, it depends on what is the context and what are the project requirements.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mauricio Palma.